1. I work at a small seaside hotel, 72 rooms. I only started over 2 months ago, and I work on my own or with one other person who is usually young or inexperienced. I have worked in hospitality for over 7 years, but never have I had to be the responsibility of an entire hotel. My local area is not the best town, and doesn't always bring the best guests. We have a few people who have been brought by the police, homeless, social services, etc. Which leads on to the past few nights I've had the similar occurrence of an obliterated guest stumbling into the lobby, the same guest who falls flat on his back each time. The first time he fell, I tried to get him into a comfortable position, sat him up, and then got him on a chair and took him to his room. The second time, which only happened tonight, was when he was trying to show me a bright luminescent ball he has won from the arcade, probably found it, brought to add to his collection. His room is basically his home at the minute, so everything from his telly to his speakers he blasts through the night is there taking up the entire room. He's recently had to be moved as his room is a fire hazard. He leans over to show me the ball, losing his composure, and goes straight on his back. The guest I had just checked in comes down on his way out, asking if I need help and that a family is on their way with the pram. Meanwhile, the man is laying on the floor. The guest with the pram opened the doors, pushing straight into him, whilst I'm trying to indicate he's laying there, and I realize the guests are a couple that are staying with us who live locally, but have had a few incidents with the police. Now for some reason are staying with us. Their neighbors have had the police bust their door in. Story for another time. The boyfriend of the couple picks the man up from the floor, from under his arms like nothing. I try to usher him towards the elevator to get him to his room, as I don't want any more guests to be disrupted by his stay, as he is always drunk and a problem to the hotel. He then takes a seat in the lobby, in the waiting area, slurring away his words, as I thank the couple for helping me as they go on their way. Now I have to explain the night before as to why I didn't help. The night before, I had a guest arrive with a man in a wheelchair who had been dropped off in a taxi right outside the hotel. Both of the arrivals looked rough and rugged, and you could smell them as they entered the desk area. Both guests were responsive enough to check in, but didn't have his card, nor were we accepting cash at the moment. After a few back and forth hassling and agreeing to finally take cash, and confirming with my manager, he managed to scrape together just shy of $14.47. When I had realized his card was listed under his reservation, so charged his card on file, and sent him on his way with his partner. Moments later, I greeted them at the bar, only to be asked for double vodka, which I provided. After a few drinks, my colleague wanted to put the Christmas tree up, so we went to collect the decorations, to come back to the man laying on the floor, and the guy in the wheelchair just sat there, not indicating for any help and just as drunk as his friend. Another guest who is staying with us, a lovely older gentleman who loiters the lobby looking for some company, who has been with us the past month or so, gives me the eyes to motion the gentleman is laying there. I approached the man laying on the floor, who is not intoxicated, just laying there motionless. I tried assessing the situation and then tried to help him up the best way possible, from what I faintly remembered from first aid training, which I may add you aren't supposed to pick up the patient or person in question, I believe, anyway. After attempting to lift him with a female colleague, I attempted to hold his back with my arm and lift his arm over my shoulder carefully, with no avail, and then some back and forth trying different methods lifting him back onto his chair, but also trying to avoid causing any pain. Nothing, and then he insisted he wasn't moving. I fought with him to say you need to move from this area as we're closing up, ushering the older gentleman from earlier to leave the bar. The man lay on the floor, was adamant he wasn't moving, and then was getting angry as I remained calm, and explained I will not be able to help you up. You will either need to clear from this area, or I will have to take the matter to the police. I got my colleague to ring my manager to confirm what to do going forward in the situation. He said to ring the police and say the man is being abusive and it's a family holiday destination, and he is disturbing the guests. As I didn't think the man was being abusive, and he was only laying on the floor at that point, blurted out, I don't mean to be ignorant. As he was refusing to move and he just wanted to lay there, I didn't feel right ringing the police. My manager said to lock ourselves in the refuge spot and wait for the police even though we had people in the lobby, and were told to lock the doors. Of course, I responded by doing so reluctantly, as didn't want to do so as told otherwise. The people waiting in the lobby were the older gentleman and a colleague's uncle, who was staying with us, who had ordered food, and the guy was still laying on the floor, not causing any harm. We rang the police, and they waited 45 minutes to ring back to say, "Do you still need us to come, or do you want us to swing by in the morning?" As I explained, the guest at this point had gone up to his room on his own accord. I explained there's no point coming now, disrupting the guest even further by waking him up and causing a scene, and they understand, as the situation wasn't as dire as if he was causing direct harm towards us. But I just felt like the police shouldn't have been rang. Surely there's another way of dealing with drunk guests laying on the floor. The first guest mentioned, whose room is a fire hazard, loves the arcades and has been put in our hotel due to God knows. The guest means no harm, but I don't know what I'm legally supposed to do in this situation. Wait for some guest to hoist him up from the ground when passing through the lobby? Carry him to his room like the first time I met him, or ask for assistance of a colleague? The second guy, with the man in the wheelchair, don't think he was even dealt with the morning after, as he was due out the next day, and I wasn't on, so didn't hear anything about it. 2. Since it is the holiday season, I thought I would share this snippet from last year's wonderful Christmas season. From September to December last year, my hotel was having the worst time trying to find someone to help our front desk manager Buck. In comes Jay. Now, Jay had previously applied for a sales position at the hotel back in October. However, she never completed the new hire training required by corporate before she could be officially called an employee, not to mention some red flags on her background check. By the end of November, she had finally settled everything with us. But we couldn't wait any longer and filled the sales position. So management asked her if she would instead like to take up the position of front desk supervisor. She happily agreed, and thus my semi-peaceful nights were to be filled with her. How things were before and pretty much after Jay got hired and before I got promoted was that I would work nights with my front desk manager Buck. I say with loosely, as I did work the front desk by myself, and he did who knows what on his laptop in his office. Now, for the most part, this did not bother me, as I was and am extremely efficient as a front desk agent, and can be quite specific in how I want things done. Not one bad review, let me just say. So Jay gets hired on, and I am in charge of training her, as I am the most knowledgeable person when it comes to our point of sale system and hotel amenities and happenings. My initial thought of Jay was that she was quite slobbish looking, but I try to judge a person based on their work ethic rather than their appearance, thus ignoring that. Not even with the first night together, she proves herself to be a difficult case. After 10 minutes into our shift, she walks away from me as I explain tier levels to her, and sits on an ottoman in front of our desk. Obviously, I stop explaining things and she tells me to continue. It was just that medically, I really don't think this was the case, even a year later, she could not stand for more than 20 minutes and was winded after having to walk downstairs and back up to clock in. 20 minutes. First off, you just chose the wrong job. Typically, I never took a break because I was the only person at the desk, and when I did leave, I got called back almost immediately because Buck, or if I actually had another front desk agent with me, needed help. I didn't say anything to Jay and just continue explaining perks and the like as she lounges in front of me. Eventually, a guest comes around to check in. Jay, to her credit, got up and went to watch me do the check-in process. Unfortunately for me, this is when I learned she had no idea what personal space was. She was standing right next to me, arm to hip, connecting with my back. Again, I didn't say or do anything and checked the guy in. After he leaves, I plan on having her try to repeat back to me what I did. But again, she leaves to sit. Add in her 30-minute smoke breaks, 4 times in an 8-hour shift, and this is basically my life for the next 3 weeks. Now you may be asking, a sad existence, why didn't you say anything? Well, nothing really changed about my work life. I was already doing the work of 2 or 3 agents, and I liked keeping busy. I also didn't have to. Everyone knew how horrible she was. I tried my best to train her, But when she did have morning shifts, it was a disaster, let alone the 2 times she was left alone during those shifts. I still cry thinking about all the stuff I had to fix when my shift came. We were already short-staffed, only 4 agents and B and J, and December from start to finish was absolutely insane. So management bit their tongue and prayed to find someone else to hopefully replace her. Much to the chagrin of the other 3 agents, 2 of whom decided to ignore her, and the other openly threatened to fight her every time they interacted. This left poor me as the only one who could pretend to tolerate her for the sake of a peaceful work environment. So, because I was the only one who would talk to her, I say this loosely, all I would say was uh-huhs and reallys. These were glorious stories about her crazy-ass family, her 16-year-old daughter engaged to a 23-year-old man who was having trouble finding work and ended up moving in with them. Like what? I desperately want to vomit even thinking back to that. But it all comes to a head at our massive employee holiday party, which we throw a few days before the new year. I had to work, shocker, but Jay decided to go and quite literally throw down. She had so much booze that I was sure I would find her frozen dead in the alleyway upon leaving my shift. But instead, she drunkenly stumbles back to the desk and asks if I have any rooms she could sleep in, because she couldn't drive home. I told her that she would have to ask management if she could sleep here, because I could only do it if she paid. She said okay and walked away, never to be seen from by me again. I found out, after having 2 days off, that the next day housekeeping had found her in a vacant dirty room with one of the dishwashers from the kitchen, also a creep. She had decided to use Buck's laptop to find a room and used her manager's key to open it up for their escapades. I cannot tell you how much I laughed in private. I still laugh thinking about it. Room 604, you have seen horrors. She was promptly fired and escorted off property by our GM, who took all her keys. 3. So I worked the graveyard shift as a security guard for a small private company, and one of the places I have worked security for was at 2 hotels. One thing I do while I'm at work is try to be respectful and give someone the benefit of the doubt, especially when there is supposedly only one witness to something going on. I also try to be as respectful as I can be, even when the person or people I am dealing with are being uncooperative and belligerent. One of the things I do when I first get on shift is to talk to the front desk of the first hotel I would guard, and see if they need anything before I begin my patrols for the night. And I always checked in with the front desk as often as I could, so they knew I was there to help if needed. I would often walk over to the second hotel and do the same thing. Most of the time, they would ask me to go to a room and knock to let the guests know they were being a little too loud, and that there was a noise complaint, and the guest would usually apologize and then quiet down for the night. This night in question, I had to deal with 3 entitled parents. One thing about the hotel is that the lobby closes to the public at 9 p.m., so that means any large gatherings are prohibited from continuing at that time. And that is the time I would start work. I grabbed a radio so the hotels could contact me at any moment they needed security. I would walk from the first hotel after having let them know that I was on duty, and that I would make my way over to the second hotel to do the same thing. When I checked in with the front desk of the second hotel, the clerk behind the desk asked if I could talk to a group of adults who had been drinking and were getting very loud. I calmly and respectfully told them that they could continue their party in their rooms, but they had to vacate the lobby as it was officially closed for the night. The clerk at the front desk had told me that she had tried to get them to quiet down and leave the lobby for the past 10 minutes, yet they complained that as guests they were entitled to stay in the lobby. They complained that the hotel had gotten security involved and complained on their way back to their rooms but left the lobby. I began my patrols, when I got a call less than 30 minutes later at the same hotel because someone had complained that children were running in the halls. The hotel was currently hosting a sports event, and many kids on the sports teams were there. The clerk behind the front desk had met me in her lobby, and we went to the room we believed the children were. When I saw the kids, they said they had all been outside until a moment ago when they came back to the room, which I could verify as true. The kids then said they had seen 2 kids that appeared to be twins running through the hallways. The clerk leaned her back and gave an exhausted sigh and told me that she had gotten complaints all day about those two kids, and she believed that the parents were in the group that had been kicked out of the lobby earlier. I walked around the hotel to see if I could find the room the kids were in, and was stopped by hotel maintenance and told that they had seen those kids running away from the floor I was on, and that the fire retardant cases were all open, and one appeared to have been kicked in and was badly dented. I spotted the two kids in question, and they immediately went back to their room at a running pace when they spotted me. I found out what room they were in and reported everything to the clerk, before going to the first and second floor to find out if any more damage had happened. And a guest had told me that they saw two twins running around the second floor, and I found all the cases open except one that had been broken. It was missing the handle, and the glass was cracked. I went to the lobby and showed the pictures of all the damage done, and the clerk called her manager directly, at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night. For those who don't know, most hotel management is never in on the weekends. The manager had said that these kids and their parents needed to leave immediately and charge the room for all damages done to the hotel. I waited until 10:30 to go to the room, hoping that the parents would be back in the room. I went up to the room and knocked on the door, and one of the kids responded. The encounter went as followed. "Hello, I am security for the hotel. Are your parents in the room?"
No.
"Could you tell me where your parents are?"
In another room.
"Can you tell me what room they're in?" The entitled kid told me what room the parents are in, and I immediately told the children to contact their parents and have them meet me up at the room. As soon as the door closed, I stepped away from the door but kept it in immediate view, and contacted the front desk and asked the clerk to wait with me since we were dealing with minors and for safety reasons for all parties involved. I didn't want to deal with he was harassing us for no reason and stalking us all night crap. The parents took 15 minutes to come to the room, as they expected me to leave the floor the children were on, and I was afraid they would run to another room and break more stuff on the way. The first thing that happened was the entitled father started yelling at me.
"What are you doing creeping outside our children's room?"
"Hello, I'm a security officer with the hotel. I was asked to speak with you as your children have been accused of breaking hotel property." A friend of the entitled parents chimes in.
So you thought you would harass young boys? Do you get off on doing that or something?
"Sir, your children have been accused of breaking hotel property, and because of the risk of them supposedly doing this again, my job here is that I am assigned to protect this hotel from such things, and as such, your children are considered a threat to the safety of the hotel."
"You have no right to be outside of their room. You should have come to speak to us at our room, not be a creep and stand outside their room like a fucking pervert."
"Sir, they are classified as a threat with the accusations of the destruction of private property. As it stands, the hotel managers have made it clear that you are no longer guests here, and you must leave the property immediately." The mother says,
You've no proof that our children are behind this. They have been perfectly behaved and have been in their rooms all night.
Unfortunately, as they kept trying to yell and talk over me, I was beginning to get irritated and losing my polite attitude, and started becoming that extreme asshole security guard with the cop attitude that no one wants to deal with. That's bullshit. I have hotel staff that have seen them outside of their room. I have guests in the hotel that have seen them outside of their room, and I have personally seen that they have been outside of their room.
Everyone else is lying and personally targeting our children, including you. There are many children here that could be the culprits behind these accusations, but you're just choosing to blame everything on our children.
I don't care if you believe me or not, you need to leave the property immediately. It is at this moment that the entitled father got directly in my face and said,
"I don't have to do anything you say, and we are not leaving. I work for the FBI."
I looked at him and demanded he shows me his federal credentials, proving that he is a part of the FBI. The state I live and work in states that if you identify as a member of local or federal law enforcement, or as a federal employee, you have to show your credentials, even if you live in another state. The entitled father said he didn't have to until I told him this exact same law. He then told me that he left them in the room and needed to get them. When I was able to confirm that they didn't want to leave, I calmly walked back to the hotel lobby, but not before the entitled friend said,
"Go ahead and leave, you pervert. You know that you're wrong and you have nothing to prove."
As soon as I was in the elevator, I got on the radio with another clerk at the front desk and told them to call the local sheriff's department, and told her the entire encounter, and explained that they were now trespassing on hotel property. While the clerk was on the phone, the night auditor came in and I debriefed him on what was going on. The entitled father came down and began demanding the hotel give the family a full refund or they were not leaving, and that they couldn't do anything as he was FBI. He unfortunately severely scared the two clerks that were still on shift and made the night auditor nervous with this, and I told them to let law enforcement know that the man was claiming this, and that I now feared he had a weapon on the property. Thankfully, they went back to their rooms after realizing that the hotel would not budge, and they stayed in their rooms for the rest of the night. I checked all the hallways just in case, but thankfully they remained clear for the rest of my shift. Law enforcement showed up around 3 in the morning, and I explained everything to them. They became guarded, especially now that they feared the man was FBI, may have a weapon on the property that was not registered in the hotel database. Law enforcement said that they would take the family away as they were trespassing, but there was little that could be done. The parents told the officers that I had not talked to the parents, nor had the hotel spoken to them about anything. The entitled father and his friends started demanding information from the hotel about the clerks involved, and all of my work information. I told them I was not allowed to legally give out any of my work information outside the name of my work. It wasn't true, but the guy believed it and said he would contact my work and make sure my superiors hear about me and how I was a creep. The rest of the night was uneventful, and the entitled family stayed in their rooms. But that was because they didn't want to leave, and the night auditor was a nice guy and didn't want to kick the children out at 4 in the morning with nowhere else to go. Since the kids of these entitled parents were connected to a sports group, and there were about 10 to 15 rooms all connected under the group, the hotel decided to charge each room with the destruction of property, and attached a report both hotel staff had written and myself to make sure it was known why each room was charged over $500 in damages. One of the fun things about that night is that one of the sheriffs that showed up was a friend from high school that I haven't seen in over 10 years. It was nice to catch up with him and see that he was doing good. 4. I work at a hotel near a major airport, so naturally we have an airport shuttle to take our guests back and forth. Our shuttle runs 24/7, but after the pandemic, we only have one shuttle, while before we had 2 to decrease wait time. Currently it runs on a half-hour schedule, so it leaves the hotel on the top and bottom of the hour, and picks up at the airport on the 15 and 45. The only way to be fair to our guests and keep the schedule accurate is to leave the hotel right on the dot, and we only wait a few minutes if you call down ahead of time to let us know you are running late. Because the shuttle only fits so many people, we tell our guests at check-in to sign up for a time slot, so we can ensure we don't end up with 20 people showing up for a shuttle that only fits 12. Though we are not required to do so, most of us at the desk explain to the guests that they need to be in the lobby 5 minutes before the time they signed up for, as the shuttle leaves right on time and does not wait. Apparently, the front office manager checked him in and didn't mention that part, which in my opinion was a mistake, but it's not something he requires us to do, and I am the one who put in the effort to train my coworkers to do just that, and as I am not a supervisor, no one is required to take my advice and tell it to the guests, even though it prevents this sort of thing. Today, a guest who signed up for a 7 a.m. shuttle came down at 7:03 a.m. I informed the guest that the shuttle had departed, and he would need to wait for the next available shuttle. He said to reserve him another shuttle immediately, and I informed him that he would be signed up for the next shuttle at 7:30 a.m. He reiterated that he wanted to reserve a shuttle right now, and that he had already reserved himself a shuttle for 7 a.m. I told him again that he would be signed up for the next available shuttle, which just got me another insistence that he had reserved the shuttle. I realized he was under the impression that he was oh so special, and that the shuttle was leaving at 7 a.m. for him specifically, rather than leaving at 7 a.m. for our guests in general, because that's when it always leaves. I tried to explain to him that no, he did not reserve a shuttle specifically for himself, that was guaranteed to take him when he needed it, but rather he just put his name down to let us know how many people to expect for the already scheduled departure. Of course, he's super special and important, so he kept reiterating that he had reserved the shuttle and therefore we needed to get another shuttle for him immediately. I told him we have one driver, so there's no way to get another shuttle going right then and there for him, which was met with, you guessed it,
But I reserved it.
No, sir, you did not reserve the shuttle. You said you would be here for the 7 a.m. shuttle, and then you were late, and had left. Oh, and his wife came down 5 minutes later, so even if he had bothered to let us know he was going to be late, we wouldn't have been able to wait that long for the entire party to be ready. I will say the good thing he had going for his behavior was that he never invoked a status. Highest status at our hotel outside of lifetime or owner status. But he did ask for the manager's card, and I'm sure we'll get a bad review out of it. 5. I recently started my first job in a hotel as a receptionist. Before this, I've worked many hospitality jobs, but this is my first time in a hotel. So far, I've encountered all sorts of people, some annoying, some lovely, but these people today really pushed my buttons. The check-in time for our hotel is 3 p.m. When people arrive early, we tell them we cannot guarantee anything before that time. Today, that was especially true. We are dreadfully understaffed, most relevantly in housekeeping. This morning, we had 108 checkouts. Throw those together along with entitled guests, and you have a disaster just waiting to happen. 3 different couples all arrived at 7 a.m., wanting to check into their room. I gave them the whole spiel about not being able to guarantee them anything before 3 p.m. Not to mention the room type they booked still have people in them. I offer to store their luggage, they accept, and go to have some coffee in a slightly miffed mood. This is fairly normal, and people are usually nice about it. 3 hours later, at 10 a.m., they return, asking for updates on their rooms. I tell them the same message, and offer some suggestions for what they can do in the city. I say I'll give them a call when their room is ready. All 6 of them decide this is too stressful and decide to camp in the lobby. For 5 hours, until 3 p.m. Obviously, they didn't think they would have to wait until 3 p.m. Or they're there, obviously we can magically clean a room for them. Alas, this was not the case, as I had already told them thrice now. As the hours passed, they gave me dirty look after dirty look. I gave them updates. The terrible tango continued until 2 p.m. when one of them, a man, approached the front desk. I could tell from the look on his face he was disappointed. What followed is a direct quote of the conversation we had. "I just wanted to say, we've traveled extensively and would really appreciate a room." I tapped my fingers on the desk. "Yes, sir, I understand, but we don't currently have any rooms available, as I've told you before. I will check you in as soon as I have rooms ready for you." "We've been traveling for 8 years, and usually hotels are able to put us in the room if we arrive early, or change our assigned room. This has never happened before." "Sir, I understand, and when we have any rooms available at all, you will be the first to know. You know, in a situation like this, you need to employ something called crisis management. It's called prioritizing those who come first." He then walks off, and all I can think is, you deciding to sit in the lobby is hardly a crisis. At 3 p.m., like I told him, their rooms were ready. I checked them in without further incident, though they give me the stink eye the entire time. I'm clocking out by this point, so I leave and never want to think about them again. I know it's nothing major, but these entitled fucks got on my nerves so much I just had to share. Let us all rejoice that New Year's is nearly over. I feel I should clarify that all 6 of them were together, just in different rooms. All of them came to ask for updates every half hour, which is okay in itself, I don't mind that. It was the way they talked down to me, gave me dirty looks whenever I did anything. And then how the man came up later. It wasn't just one couple. We genuinely didn't have any rooms ready, which is an anomaly for us. Usually we could check them in, but we were very understaffed. But I was in constant contact with the housekeepers trying to get updates for them and trying to get them a room. It was just a bad day all around. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to COAHW, episode 104. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Alright, as we're in a new year, let's get the New Year's business out of the way. I know we're a few days in, but this is the first batch of videos I'm making in the new year. Okay, if you'd like to support the channel, you can do so through Patreon if you'd like to. You can do that on a monthly basis for as long as you please, for as little or as much as you want. However, as my channel is daily, you're basically supporting the channel, and there aren't really a tiered rewards. I don't do that. Occasionally, some bonus content, but not that often. You can also buy Hellfreezer merchandise. You'll find the link in the description along with the Patreon link. And you can also make super chats or super thanks donations during streams and videos. Okay, now that that's cleared. Okay, now that that's done, let's move on to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, thanks to my moderator, Darth Ino, would you rather vacation at the beach or in the mountains if you had to pick one? Now, personally, I'd rather vacation at a nice, cozy cabin in the mountains. Out of the way from civilization, but not so far that, people couldn't get you in an emergency. Just lots of snacks, nice log fire, plenty of electricity, though. I'm not vacationing off the grid, no thank you. And if I have to, good company. Let me know what you prefer in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. There are cookies waiting. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.